In this episode, we're talking about the brand new Google Analytics 4. Do you know what it is? Do you know what you need to do to switch out your current Google Analytics? We'll tell you coming up.
This is Better Radio Websites, the podcast for radio professionals who want to see their website generate more traffic and revenue. Each week, your host, Jim Sherwood, and his special guests give you time-tested tips and secret tricks to ensure your radio station dominates digital in your market. Here we go.
Hi, it's Jim, and welcome to Better Radio Websites, the podcast that wants to help you get more visitors and the most revenue from your radio station website. Thanks a lot for tuning in this week. Well, one of my New Year's resolutions for this year, and admittedly it was last year as well, was to learn more about Google Analytics. I mean, it's just a deep rabbit hole. Whenever you go to Google Analytics and you actually put your domain in and you put that little piece of code on your website, then you get in and you start looking at the data, it's a deep rabbit hole. It looks like looking at ratings if you're in a large market for the very, very first time, and all the little things that you can drill down into: who's coming to your website, when they're coming, when the most visitors, what they like, what they don't like, what kind of car they drive. Yeah, it can get very, very deep. And so I just haven't had a chance to really dive that deep into Google Analytics. But I'm actually really doing that now with the introduction of Google Analytics 4. This is a replacement for the current version of Google Analytics called Universal Analytics. Google Analytics was initially built during a time when all we had are those little hit counters at the bottom of websites. If you're old enough to remember those, there's a couple websites that still have them, I noticed. That's right. But anyway, since then, the way the internet and the data that all businesses need to track has drastically changed. I mean, all of these different devices that are accessing the internet now, from mobile phones, tablets, desktop computers, refrigerators, smart devices, toasters even can connect to the internet now. I mean, everything. And so the way that people are getting on the internet and what they're doing on the internet has drastically changed from those hit counter days. As a result of this ever-changing environment, Universal Analytics has finally come to a point where it just can't keep up with everything. There are some things that Universal Analytics simply can't do moving forward, like tracking all of these other different devices and that sort of thing. And then some of the things that they did, but it just wasn't very accurate. So all of these changes that have been taking place over the last several years is why Google created Google Analytics 4, or GA4. It has artificial intelligence, machine learning at its core, and privacy built right in, because a lot of people are just turning off tracking. You know, you have apps that say, do you want this app to track your whatever? And you can say no. So it has privacy built right into it. And that's a great thing. If you've jumped into Google Analytics over the past couple of months, you've probably seen a notice at the top announcing a sunset date of Universal Analytics. That's the current version of July 1st, 2023. At that time, Universal Analytics will stop collecting data on your website. You will still be able to log in and view historical data for only 6 months. But at the end of 2023, Universal Analytics and all of the data that's there will be gone for good. And like I said, you have until July 1st, 2023 to switch over. But don't wait that long. I strongly urge you not to wait until the last minute. Head over to a link that we have in the show notes to become more familiar with GA4. How is GA4 different from Universal Analytics? Well, it's a completely new platform. Yes, you will still have a piece of code that you put on your website, but how it collects data is completely different. When Google moved away from Google Analytics to Universal Analytics a few years ago, you may remember that it was just an upgrade. All you had to do was switch out the tracking code and everything worked as it did, but it was just better. This is not the case with GA4. Like I said, everything is new. It's a new platform altogether with features built in for an entirely new purpose. Fortunately, there's nothing that Universal Analytics does that GA4 will not be able to do. So that's great. However, because it's a new platform, once you get there, even if you're familiar with Universal Analytics, when you get there, there can be some of that, I got to learn a whole new thing again. So allow yourself plenty of time to get in there and do that. I mean, because there may be some additional setup to do some of the measurements that you are currently doing. Some of the names of things will change also. So we suggest running both versions right now, Universal Analytics and GA4. You can put both of those tags on your website at the same time, just one on top of the other, and it will collect data in both of those. Now, while Universal Analytics works primarily by measuring page views or hits, GA4 understands that there's really a whole lot more going on with your website than just pages being loaded. Visitors are scrolling down on a page, they're clicking on buttons, they're going off site, they're coming back, they're watching videos, they're even listening to your radio station online. Everything can be tracked. So if you want to track all of these actions in Universal Analytics, you had to go set up goals for each one of those. And none of that was there by default. We're talking like a goal for someone clicking on the Listen Live link, or a goal for someone signing up for the newsletter, certain pages, that sort of thing. GA4 doesn't have goals at all. In GA4, everything is an event. Clicking on a link, loading a page, downloading something, scrolling down on the page to a certain percentages, or even just sitting there. That's even an action as well. Nearly any activity that the visitor takes while on your site or on your page is called a quote-unquote event. And all of these events actually show up in your dashboard. And with the click of a toggle, you can set specific events to be conversion events, and then start collecting data and running reports on each one of these conversion events that you create. So conversion events actually take the place of goals in GA4. That makes it a whole lot easier. You don't have to jump off somewhere else to create something. You can read up more on GA4 events in this link that we have in the show notes. So make a plan on what kind of conversion events that you do want to track on your website. Most of the stations I work with, they only track page views and unique visitors. That's all well and good. Perfectly. If that's the only information that you want to deal with, that's great. However, the more information that you can gather from your visitors can help you make more informed decisions on what to include and possibly remove from your website in order to make it a more meaningful destination for your visitors. Examine your station website, make a list of events that you want to actively track. Maybe the ones that you are tracking, and then the ones that you wish you had tracked from the get-go. Add all of these once you get set up with GA4. And what I mean by what kind of events, you may want to know how many people are clicking on your Listen Live link, how many people are signing up for your newsletter. Because whenever you set this up, you can say, all right, if I have an event going to my newsletter sign-up page, I can have an event for actually going to the page and then have an event for how many people actually signed up. Maybe there's something on the page that is turning people off to signing up. If you have a lot of people going to the page, but not actually pulling the trigger to sign up for your newsletter. So maybe the wording should be changed on that page. That's the kind of insight that you need from these events, because that affects how many newsletter subscribers that you have. All right. And we want you to have more of those so it can be a more valuable asset to your radio station. Setting up page views, that's automatically set up for you inside of GA4. So really, if you're only tracking page views and unique visitors, you don't have to set up anything at all. Just add the code to your website and start tracking that new data. Now, you've heard us mention in the past about bounce rates. A bounce rate is when someone comes to your website and then immediately leaves. They don't do anything else on your website. Thinking about clicking on a news story on Facebook, someone comes to your website, they read the news story, and then they immediately leave. That would be called a bounce. Well, within Universal Analytics, these stats were wildly inaccurate, some of the experts say. So GA4, much different now, actually measures every second someone is on your page. When someone comes to your page, a timer starts in GA4. Instead of a bounce, this new metric is called an engagement rate. By default, this rate is 10 seconds, but you can adjust as necessary depending on your needs. If someone comes to your site and stays for at least 10 seconds, that's recorded as a engaged session. All right, now that's very, very cool to know, because if you have a blog post that is only 2 sentences, that may be close if someone reads that in less than 10 seconds and then leaves. That's the sort of thing that you want to be thinking about with this new engagement rate metric. And I find this very, very cool. Scrolling events are now a metric. GA4 can actually track if a user scrolls down a specific percentage on a page, like 90%. So this is good information if you have, like, let's say, a large homepage. It has lots of information on the homepage, but most of your users never scroll past 20% of it. They see the top part. They hardly ever scroll down. They never go to the bottom. Then you may want to consider, okay, maybe we don't need all of that information way down on the homepage if nobody is going to see it or even go there. We want our top story at the beginning and the kinds of things that we want them to do first, and then they'll go and they'll do it, and they won't care that all of that extra information is not on the homepage. So that's great information to have. In the past, some of these cool new features, you had to set them up separately. But in GA4, they're all enabled by default. Yeah, you can read more on these enhanced measurements like the engagement rate and the scroll events. There's a link to it in the show notes. If I had to go into each one of these Google pages and read all of that stuff, this podcast would be 3 hours long. Again, Google Analytics itself is a deep rabbit hole, but GA4 is here to make things a whole lot better. Now, with GA4 being so new, you can please count on some time to learn it. Don't wait until July 1st and to add it to your website. Go ahead, jump into Google Analytics. There's going to be probably a little banner at the top that actually takes you there once you log into your Google Analytics admin. Set you up a new property under GA4. Add the tracking code to your website in addition to your Universal Analytics code so that both of them are getting access. Because if you do year over year, month over month, quarter over quarter stats for your radio station, you want to have both of those and have lots of data in GA4 so that when July 1, 2023 rolls around, you'll have year over year, month over month, quarter over quarter already in there, and you don't have to go back to Universal Analytics to get that data. All right, so give yourself 60 to 90 days to become familiar with the platform, and then pick a date sometime between now and July 1st of next year for you to completely get rid of the old code. And I should mention that if you've opened up Google Analytics in the past and that rabbit hole was sitting in front of you and it was kind of overwhelming a little bit, and you're thinking, man, wow, new platform. It's probably going to be a whole lot better and faster and great. And no, it's still Googleified. It still looks like Google Analytics. It's just some of the things have changed. But hopefully with this being a new platform, and this is the platform that they're going to stick with for a long time, they're looking long-term down the road, that the UI will hopefully get a whole lot better. Now, if you haven't done anything at all with Google Analytics and all of this is, I don't even want to mess with it. I don't care about the website, where my visitors are coming from and all that other stuff. Really, seriously, jump into Google Analytics just to check it out. It is such great information to know where your visitors are coming from and what they're clicking on your website, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. The information that you can get from it is useful for your sales team. If you sell banner ads on your website and you sell website sponsorships, it's great for you and your content creators because you know what works, you know what doesn't work. You know what people are coming for, what they want more of. Give them more of that. You're going to get more visitors. And in return, if you got those banner ads working for you and sponsorships, that's going to be more money for you. All right. So jump into Google Analytics 4, check it out, create your property, get that code on your website now so you can get those stats rolling in. If you need help with your website, we'd love to help with that. Reach out to us at skyrocketradio.com. Have an awesome week online making your radio station website better. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Better Radio Websites. Inspired by today's episode? Be sure you are subscribed and share this episode with a friend. Visit skyrocketradio.com/podcasts for more episodes as well as show notes for this episode. Need help starting or making your station website better? Visit skyrocketradio.com.